Welcome back to Honey from the Word. In honor of this being Pastor Appreciation Month, I want to talk to you today about honoring pastors. Our lesson comes from 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 17 and 18. Let the elders who rule well be counted worthy of double honor, especially those who labor in the word and doctrine. For the scripture says, you shall not muzzle an ox while it treads out the grain, and the laborer is worthy of his wages. It's believed that the concept of clergy appreciation started with the Apostle Paul as he was establishing the first Christian churches. 1 Timothy, he wrote, the elders who direct the affairs of the church well are worthy of double honor, especially those who work in preaching and teaching. And in 1 Thessalonians, he said, respect those who work hard among you, who are over you in the Lord, and who admonish you. Hold them in highest regard in love because of their work. 1 Thessalonians 5, verses 12 and 13. Accordingly, over the centuries, decades, and years, pastors have been recognized and honored, either formally or informally, by many denominations and local churches at various times of the year. It has been a long-standing practice. The nature of the service provided by pastors and their families is unique. God has entrusted to them one of the most precious of assignments, the spiritual well-being of his flock. Pastors and their family are under incredible pressures. Their lives are played out in a fishbowl, with the entire congregation and community watching their every move. They are expected to have ideal families, to be perfect people, to always be available, to never be down, and to have all the answers we need to keep our own lives stable and moving forward. Of course, those are unrealistic expectations to place on anyone, yet most of us are disappointed when a pastor becomes overwhelmed, seems depressed, lets us down, or just completely burns out. According to Focus on the Family Ministries, a 2002 Bureau of Labor report says that 1/5 of all full-time clergy work more than 60 hours a week, 3 times the amount of workers in professional specialty occupations. When the Apostle Paul gave young Timothy instruction for church order, he admonished by commanding, let the elders that rule well be counted worthy of double honor, especially they who labor in the word and doctrine. It's interesting to note that the Bible mentions several groups to whom honor is due, but only one is to receive double honor: those who have been designated by God to teach and lead the church. Elders were the primary church leaders in the first century. Each local church had a group of elders who guided the congregation forward in spiritual growth and ministry. These elders taught people the Bible, empowered church members to serve, helped the congregation stay focused on God's plan, and protected the congregation against doctrinal error and false teaching. The term shepherd or pastor comes from the same Greek word, and it is the second most used term for spiritual leaders of God's people. It carries with it the sense of care and tender attention needed to truly guide the flock of God. Bishop is the least used term, only found 5 times in the whole of the New Testament, one of which refers to Jesus as the shepherd and bishop of souls, 1 Peter 2:25. The underpinning of this title is found in the Hebrew word watchman, as used in Ezekiel 33. Each of these titles, elder, shepherd, or pastor, and bishop, are used to describe the same leadership role in the New Testament that we commonly refer to as the eldership. Now, it's unfortunate that word rule is used here to describe the pastor's work. That word in our world implies that these men are the bosses. They have to be obeyed and that they are governors over the congregation. But actually, the word means leads, and it is the common word for leadership. So the verse would read and should read, let the pastors who lead well be worthy of double honor. Many, even within the church, do not understand what it is that a pastor does with his time. Someone has explained it this way. The pastor teaches, though he must solicit his own classes. He heals, though without pills or knife. He is sometimes a lawyer, often a social worker, something of an editor, a bit of a philosopher, an entertainer, a salesman, a front man for public functions, and he is supposed to be a scholar. He visits the sick, marries people, buries the dead, labors to console those who sorrow and to admonish those who sin, and tries to stay sweet when chided for not doing his duty. He plans programs, appoints committees when he can get them, spends considerable time in keeping people out of each other's hair. Between times, he prepares a sermon and preaches it on Sundays and Wednesdays to those who don't happen to have any other engagement. And then on Monday, he smiles when some jovial chap roars, "What a job. Only have to work 2 days a week." So what is the reward of these spiritual leaders? In our text, Paul writes that those shepherds who fulfill their duties and fulfill them well are worthy of double honor. There are two interesting things in this phrase. The first is worthy. In the original Greek, it literally means weighty, deserving, and benefiting. The second thing is the phrase double honor. In the Greek, it is literally what our English translation says, double honor. Double honor, honor on top of honor, is like running the cup, running over, as David spoke in Psalms 23. 1 Thessalonians 5 and 13 gives an added insight where Paul writes, hold them in highest regard of love because of their work. Not only is he worthy of double honor, but he's also worthy of receiving wages. Notice verse 18. From the Old Testament, in the Bible, Paul quotes Deuteronomy 25:4. Now back in the ancient world, farmers would bring an ox into their threshing floor where they harvested their wheat. The ox would then trample the wheat with its hooves, thereby separating the wheat from the chaff so it could be harvested. This Old Testament law from Deuteronomy forbids a farmer from muzzling the ox as it tramples the wheat. Instead, they should allow the ox to eat some of the wheat as it works. And Paul is saying that pastors are like oxen. Well, that's not very flattering, but just as the ox has a right to benefit from its labor, so also the church leader, called to full-time leading or teaching, has a right to financial support from the church. Another way to honor a pastor is not entertain or receive an accusation against them. Notice verse 19. Do not receive an accusation against an elder except from 2 or 3 witnesses. To entertain or receive an accusation against someone is to accept that accusation is true and accurate. No accusation against an elder is to be considered as true unless that accusation comes from at least 2 witnesses. Independent confirmation was needed for an accusation to be considered true and valid. Every member of the church should refuse to let anyone whisper into his ear any gossip about the pastor. We should be quick to believe the best and slow to think the worst of church leaders, especially our pastors. In fact, to accuse someone or to gossip about someone is the exact opposite of giving honor. So if you haven't already, then I encourage you to honor your pastor. If you have, don't make it just one time of the year. but honor your pastor every opportunity that you get. May the Lord bless you, and may we all spend time honoring pastors.